Before you make any corrections, think, do I actually need to do this? Does this a little bit out of tune note make musical sense? Does it add to the expression? Or is it plainly just a wrong note that needs to be corrected? Hello everyone and welcome back, Dom here, and on this video we're going to talk about the 5 top vocal tuning mistakes and how to avoid them. Coming up. So this day and age, one of the most important skills to have if you want to work into the music production field, if you want to work in studios, or even if you are, a self-produced songwriter, or artist, that is vocal tuning. And when I'm talking vocal tuning, I'm not talking about slapping an auto-tune plug into your vocals and call this auto-tuning. That's not what I mean. This also serves a purpose. It's a quick and dirty way to get things done and get vocals to sound a little bit better. What I mean with vocal tuning is, manual vocal tuning with things like VariAudio or Melodyne. So on this video, I'm going to show you the 5 mistakes that I see most people do when they do vocal tuning, when they start out this process and it's their first time and they're not sure exactly how to approach this. Now, I'm going to be using VariAudio because it's my favorite vocal tuning tool. It's super tightly integrated in Cubase, it's fast, I don't need to render anything, but of course, everything that I'm going to show you here applies to, let's say, Melodyne. That's also a great tool and it's supported inside Cubase with ARA support. I use Melodyne for more complex things. When I'm dealing with polyphonic material, it's great for this. It's such an advanced tool. But for my bread and butter vocal tuning, VariAudio is perfect. Let's get started. Let's talk about the first mistake. And the first mistake is overcorrecting your vocals. Now, this is very typical when you're starting out tuning vocals. You have the tendency to make every single note straight, every single note exactly on the pitch grid. And some genres really call for this. This is a very typical approach for some genres of music. You have a very hard-tuned vocal, as we call it. But for stuff that is not supposed to be like that, this can really make your vocals sound unnatural. For example, let's take this vocal.
To let somebody in again.
And as you can see, let's activate VariAudio for a second. And one of the things that people do is they grab all the notes and what they do is they quantize the pitch like this. Now, before you start doing this, just think, do you really need to do this? Does this sound really wrong to you? Or are you just doing this because you see that they're not in a straight line, they're not exactly on the grid, on the pitch grid? I would say that this vocal, for example,
to let somebody in again.
It's quite nice, it has a nice feeling, it has expression. I don't want to ruin this, There are a few fluctuations here and there, and if you start correcting this, like if you take this and you say, I want to quantize the pitch, VariAudio will still do a great job. Let's listen to it.
To let somebody in again.
But maybe this portion, for example, was supposed to be a little bit flat. It was supposed to have that little dip there. Now, if you want to correct it, of course, you can do this. And what I would actually do in this case would be to actually separate in more segments. For example, I can see that there's a little bit of a bump here in pitch. So maybe I could, instead of doing this, what we just did, I would just take this one and I would go here, set my arc point, and then go like this, okay? And let's listen. Is it better?
To let somebody in.
Same with this one. Now, you see, I have another segment here. Maybe I can go here and I can go like this. Okay, let's listen.
Let somebody in again.
So you can see that here I have this note that is not straight. It has this slur here, okay? Many newcomers to vocal tuning, they get completely confused with stuff like this. The problem that most people have is that they try to figure out, should I place it here? Or should I go like this?
Yeah.
Or should I straighten this altogether? And that's one of the main dangerous. Many people go, I don't know how to deal with this, let's straighten this. And then they end up with something like this.
Let somebody in again.
Which is obviously wrong. So in this case, you shouldn't do this. You should actually find the main note, not the slur, and then make sure that this is in pitch. In this case, we have an F sharp that goes momentarily to G, and it goes back to F sharp. So we're going to correct for the F sharp. And in this case, I can see that this is pretty much okay. This might not go as much to in the center of G as it would be visually correct, but when you listen to it, it doesn't sound wrong.
And again.
If this note sounds a little bit flat to me, maybe I can do the same thing. I can bring in my anchor point and just pull this up. And let's listen now.
And again.
The other thing that goes under the umbrella of overcorrecting is making your vocals sound flat, and that happens when you use tools like the straighten curve in Vario Audio, for example. So that's the original.
To let somebody in again.
So because many people are afraid of manual editing, what they do is they go here and they straighten the curve. And now they think, okay, now all the notes look straight, but then they end up with something like this.
To let somebody in again.
Which, of course, is hard-tuned vocals. It shows that it's a cheap vocal tuning. You don't want that. So make sure that you treat every note individually. Before you make any corrections, think, do I actually need to do this? Does this a little bit out of tune note make musical sense? Does it add to the expression? Or is it plainly just a wrong note that needs to be corrected? Especially if you're working with experienced singers, when you're working with professionals, I would try and keep the essence of their vocals as pure as possible and only correct when it's absolutely necessary. Now, when you have a singer that's not well trained and maybe they're amateurs and they want to have fun and you're producing a track, then you might want to be a little bit more drastic. But whatever the case, you shouldn't overcorrect more than needed. Now, let's move on to the second mistake, and that's a very, very common one, and many people have a hard time figuring out what to do to correct this. And this is unnatural note transitions. So, the transition between the notes. That's the hardest part to correct, because obviously you're trying to correct for the slur, which is very, very hard. For example, let's take this vocal.
You say my name like no one else.
Okay, let's say that for some reason I want to get rid of this vibrato right here in these two notes. Okay, so let's say I want to straighten the pitch curve. So I can go like this, straighten this, okay? And maybe I want to straighten this one as well. Good. Now, let's listen to how it sounds now.
You say my name like no one else.
Immediately, again, we have this hard tune effect. And this doesn't really happen because we reduce the vibrato, okay? Because we might want to reduce the vibrato sometimes. It happens because between these transitions, now we have like a hard line, okay? It's not smooth anymore. Most people, they go stuck. Like, I can't do this. There's no way I can do this. Or they start chopping. Let me show you one cool tip that you can do inside Cubase with Vario Audio that can get rid of all these problems, okay, all these artifacts. Once you do your straightening, all you need to do is go here, see this little icon here, that top right corner, just go like this, see? And the same with this one. Okay, and let's listen.
You say my name like no one.
And boom! That's one of the most useful tools, in my opinion, when it comes to Vario Audio, and a huge update compared to the previous version. What I'm doing here is I'm saying to Vario Audio, you know what? Straighten this note. Yes, I want this straight. I want this to be perfectly in pitch, okay? Like this. But I want the transitions to be natural, because the transitions don't really affect the pitch. We don't really conceive them as wrong notes. but we do perceive them as bad tuning. We do perceive them as unnatural tuning when we hear those hard transitions. So listen to this now, and I'm going to go even more drastic with the straightening, okay? Even more drastic. Let's listen.
You say my name like no one else.
And maybe I want to go like this as well.
You say my name like no.
So see how straight this note is. See how straight this note is. But because I took care of these transition portions here, these two ranges, these ranges here, as you can see, and of course you can fine tune them until they sound right. This doesn't sound like it's a hard tuned vocal, even though I can do the whole thing like that. You know, I can go ahead and straighten the curves, but if I leave the transitions intact, then I'm going to have a way more natural vocal, which is again super in tune. So depending on what style of music, especially for pop music, this is a very cool trick. If you want to make pop vocals super tight in terms of pitch but still retain a natural sound, the range selection for the pitch curve is what makes all the difference. And as you can see, if I grab more than one, I can tweak them at the same time, simultaneously. How cool is that? Let me know in the comments down below if you knew about this feature with Vario Audio. But in the meantime, let's move on to mistake number 3, and that's the artifacts when you're pitching consonants up and down, okay? This is again a very, very common problem, and again, it gives away, and especially if you are a music producer or an audio engineer in your experience, it immediately gives away that the vocal has been treated, it has been tuned. It's such a characteristic sound that, you know, you can't escape it. So don't be that person that has that mistake in your vocal tuning. Let me show you what I mean and how to avoid it. First of all, let me show you how it sounds. So let's take this vocal for example.
To let somebody.
And you can see I have this S here, and you can already see that Vario Audio has taken good care of that S, so it basically doesn't consider it a note. As you can see, there is no pitch information here, but let me try and force it to make it wrong, okay? Let's try this one.
To let somebody.
So hear that artifact? It sounds really, really strange.
To let some.
What can you do in order to correct this? The first thing that I would do is, if that was connected to my main vocal, so my vowel, then I would probably split it and then reset the pitching. Now, Vario Audio here has already separated it, that's why you can't do it by mistake. But let's say that it was connected to this.
To let somebody.
Okay, then if I pitch this one up, it would sound weird.
Let some.
Okay, so what I would do would be either to go like this again, okay, and make sure that this is not affected, but also I would go one step forward and just go like this and separate it manually if it wasn't separated already. Now, I've seen other DAWs that have similar functions that don't get this right, so if you're using another DAW, I'm sorry, but that's the solution. You can do this on your platform, but switch to Cubase. Anyway, and this is relevant for consonants like S's or F's, especially sibilant consonants, right? That's the solution, very easy. And once you separate the note, you just go here and say functions, reset pitch changes for selection. And that's it. And now it will sound like a natural S again. The next mistake is not taking into account the musical context of your song, namely the key of the song. And this is a very common problem that many audio engineers have when they try to do vocal tuning and they don't have knowledge of music theory and music harmony. It can be really, really challenging try to tune a vocal like this, because you have to have a very trained ear and you need to be aware of the key of the song so that you pick the right notes, right? For example, let's take this vocal here, and let's say I was given this and I was asked to do vocal tuning.
We're sailing across that fading light with those vintage lullabies.
Now, in this case, I have no musical context. I don't have the track playing in the background. It's really hard to tell which notes I should use. But with the new Cubase 11, there's a little bit of a hack that you can use to figure out which notes you're supposed to use. And what I would do in this case would be to go to my vocal, activate Vario Audio, and then what I can do is I can go to Functions and say Extract MIDI. Now, when you do this, you will get this dialog. I would try with static pitch bend data, and then I would go fixed velocity, and maybe I want to add a new MIDI track. Now, once you hit OK, this is what happens. You get a new MIDI track that comes from this vocal. So it has extracted all the notes and it has turned them into MIDI. Let's check it out. See? Now, all I need to do is make sure that I get the notes that are the most stable. You know, select maybe these notes here, see? And these notes here. Maybe I won't select these ones because these are slurs. You know, they're like, you know, that first note, that might not be in the key. But these look like they are in key. So let's grab them. And then what I can do is I can go to my scale assistant here and I can ask it to give me some suggestions. So let's go and select a few notes. And as you can see, I have some suggestions here. It says it could be C major, it could be A major, E Aeolian, and so on and so forth, judging by these notes. So now I have a little bit of a ballpark. If I know this is in A minor, for example, okay, let's go A minor. Then I can even go here and say, okay, look, I want to see if all the notes are there. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the pitch visibility to show me if these notes are in the key of A minor. Let's see.
We're sailing across that fading light with those vintage lullabies, velvet sounds for...
So now all I need to do is go and check which notes are allowed for A minor and then go to my Vario Audio here and then I'm correcting the notes for A minor. For example, if I go here and say I want to correct this note, and let's say that this note was in between C and C sharp, I don't need to worry about it because I know we are in A minor, so all I need to do is go to C natural. Of course, after I do this, I can just give it a listen as well, right? We need to hear. And I have a more focused way of doing my tuning. Now, if you are very good with music theory and music harmony and you know your scales and your keys, obviously it will be much, much easier for you. And the last mistake that I want to talk about today is the lack of practice. Like with everything else in life, tuning vocals takes a lot of practice. If you do it once, you're going to do maybe a bad job, maybe an okay job. If you do it twice, you'll become better and better and better. Because the point with vocal tuning is that it's not always standard. There's no magic recipe for a good natural vocal tuning. And sometimes, as a matter of fact, a good vocal tuning might not be natural. Maybe the song needs and a natural vocal tuning, a more hard-tuned feel. You must know how far to go every single time. You know, how far do I need to time correct this? How far do I need to pitch correct this? And this is something that unfortunately I cannot teach you on a 15-minute video. This is something that you have to work with a lot of artists, do a lot of vocal tunings. Don't avoid doing the vocal tunings. That's a very important thing. Don't choose the easy way, slapping a auto-tune plugin into your inserts and think, oh, that's probably gonna sound good, because you're training your ear, you're training your musical skills when you're tuning. You have your own say when you're doing your vocal tuning. You can destroy a vocal, you can make it completely lifeless, or you can actually enhance it. And that's the whole point. You should enhance a vocal. You shouldn't be intrusive to a vocal, making it completely unrecognizable. The only time that I would do this is if I have a really, really, really bad singer. And that happens. You know, sometimes you need to completely salvage a situation. And in this case, you can't do much. But in most other cases, spend time with vocal tuning, do this one, take feedback from other people, other producers, see how they feel about it, take feedback from your singer. If they're saying that, that sounds unnatural, you're probably doing it wrong. So that's the final mistake, and in the comments down below, let me know if I missed a mistake on this video. I would really like to know if you've also experienced other mistakes when it comes to vocal tuning. And also, if you'd like me to do a video for Vari Audio, a little bit more in-depth, let me know in the comments down below. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and of course, share this video with anyone you think they might find it useful or entertaining. So I'm absolutely confident that all of you amazing people that watch this video are not going to make these vocal tuning mistakes ever again. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.